What happens when a whole era of Marvel animation slips through the cracks of memory? Before huge movies and glossy streaming shows, the 1970s gave us a wild mix of experiments, test runs, and odd creative swings that feel almost unreal today. Some aired at strange hours, some were forgotten as soon as they appeared, and a few were so unusual they barely feel like Marvel at all. Stay close, because one of these lost cartoons may surprise you more than you expect. Number 15. Spider-Man, 1977 to 1978. Spider-Man has been animated many times, but this version is the one almost nobody talks about. The 1977 cartoon was created as a companion to the live-action series that aired around the same time, and the two shared a similar look. Instead of the psychedelic style of the late 60s or the bold experiments of the later 80s, this one sat in a strange middle ground. It mixed hopeful energy with stiff movement and long pauses that gave the whole show an odd rhythm. The storytelling was straightforward. Peter Parker handled school problems one moment and high-rise danger the next. The animation reused backgrounds to the point where the city looked like it was stuck in a loop. Yet that was part of the charm. It had the feeling of a project made with determination more than resources, trying to bridge 2 decades of Marvel tone without fully landing in either. Some episodes focused more on mystery, some on science gone wrong, and a few leaned into gentle humor that actually worked. What makes this series memorable now is how different it feels from every other Spider-Man cartoon. It is Marvel between eras, finding its voice, testing its ideas, and giving fans a version of Peter that is earnest, calm, and quietly fun. It may not be the webhead's flashiest adventure, but it stands as a time capsule of an era when Marvel animation was learning how to grow. Number 14. The New Fantastic Four, 1978. If you ever wondered what the Fantastic Four would look like without one of their most iconic members, this cartoon answers the question. The New Fantastic Four from 1978 famously left out Johnny Storm. There were concerns about giving kids ideas about fire, so the studio replaced him with a small robot named Herbie. It sounds strange, and it absolutely was, but that strangeness is exactly why this show is remembered today. With 3 original team members and 1 mechanical newcomer, the series leaned heavily into science adventures. Reed was the calm problem solver. Sue used her gifts with grace, Ben supplied humor and heart, and Herbie handled the notes that a young hero usually would. The plots jumped from cosmic trouble to underground cities, always with the bright optimism of late 70s animation. The animation style was clean and simple, with smooth lines and light pastel colors. Scenes often felt like moving comic panels, which gave the show a classic charm. While some longtime fans missed the Human Torch, others found the series refreshing for how boldly it embraced a different lineup. Looking back, the New Fantastic Four is a reminder that Marvel in the 70s did not fear taking odd risks. It may not have changed the world, but it absolutely left a mark on Marvel history by daring to do something unexpected and cheerful. Number 13. Spider-Woman, 1979. Spider-Woman entered animation with little warning and even less fanfare. In 1979, Marvel created a full cartoon around Jessica Drew, a character who was still new in the comics. The result was a bright, strange, almost dreamy show that mixed adventure, science fiction, and a small dose of mystery. It gave Jessica a newsroom job, an adventurous spirit, and abilities that were animated with bold, sweeping effects. Each episode unfolded like a comic book come to life. Jessica balanced her work at a magazine with sudden calls for help, and her transformation scenes became a signature moment. The animation team leaned into glowing colors, long shadows, and rising musical cues that made the action scenes feel larger than the budget would normally allow. The stories ranged from world threats to ancient mysteries, showing a wide imagination for such a new character. Spider-Woman also stood out for one more reason. It was one of the first Marvel shows centered entirely on a female hero. That alone makes it a fascinating piece of animation history. While the tone stayed friendly and calm, Jessica remained resourceful and brave in every episode. Today, the show feels like a forgotten treasure. It moves with the gentle pace of late 70s animation, yet it has a charm that grows the more you watch. Spider-Woman may not have reached the fame of other Marvel icons, but she absolutely earned her place in the animation timeline. Number 12. The Super Adventures of the Fantastic Four, 1970s. This one is a mystery even to many fans. The Super Adventures of the Fantastic Four was not a brand new series, but a reworked version of the 1967 cartoon, cut apart and rebuilt for early 70s syndication. It aired in scattered markets, sometimes at unusual hours, often with almost no promotion. The result was a version of the Fantastic Four that felt familiar, yet strangely rearranged. Episodes were shortened, scenes were reshuffled, and new narration was added to tie everything together. The tone shifted depending on the market, which made every broadcast feel a little different. For kids discovering Marvel for the first time, this was their entry point. It carried the same bold villains and quirky science stories as the original show, but with a slightly updated voice that aimed to make the series feel more current. The charm came from its collage-like style. You could sense the editors trying to give new life to older material. Even though the animation stayed limited, the pacing felt quicker and more energetic. It was a bridge between the lively 60s design and the cleaner 70s look. While the Super Adventures of the Fantastic Four was never a mainstream hit, it quietly kept the team in the public eye. It served as a reminder that even recycled Marvel could still feel exciting when packaged with care. Number 11. The Spider-Man Classroom Safety Films, 1974. In 1974, Marvel created one of its most unusual animated projects, the Spider-Man Classroom Safety Films. Produced in partnership with educational distributors, these shorts presented Spider-Man not as a hero fighting villains, but as a friendly guide teaching children about everyday safety. The animation was simple, mostly moving panels, light motion cycles, and bright colors, but the tone was warm, calm, and encouraging. Each short focused on a practical topic: crossing streets, understanding traffic lights, avoiding hazardous objects, or recognizing unsafe situations. Spider-Man narrated the lessons directly to the audience, offering easy steps and gentle reassurance. Instead of dramatic battles, he demonstrated caution, patience, and smart decision-making in everyday environments. The layout resembled a hybrid between comic pages and early instructional television. Characters shifted or zoomed slightly, while the narrator highlighted key phrases meant to help children remember the lesson. Teachers often used these films as quick classroom breaks, and for many young viewers, this was their first introduction to Spider-Man. Because the films were distributed regionally, no two schools received the same set, and many versions are now lost. Yet the project remains a fascinating footnote, proof that Marvel was willing to adapt its most popular hero into a calm, educational figure long before brand partnerships became common. Number 10. The Incredible Hulk motion comic segments, early 1970s. Before the Hulk received full animated shows, he existed in a strange half-animated world that most fans never knew existed. During the early 1970s, Marvel created short educational Hulk segments that were shown in schools, local stations, and community broadcasts. They were not full cartoons, and they were not still comic panels either. Instead, they lived in a middle ground where drawings shifted, slid, and zoomed across the frame while a narrator delivered the story. These shorts focused on science themes, teamwork, and calm decision-making. The Hulk was shown more as a symbol of strength with heart rather than a figure of destructive frenzy. The creators used gentle colors, simple shapes, and slow transitions to make the episodes feel friendly for classrooms. Many kids saw these without ever realizing they were watching Marvel characters. Because they were made for educational partnerships, the footage changed from region to region. Some versions had longer narration, some used different sound effects, and others added new lesson moments. This is one reason the series feels mysterious today. There is no single version that represents all of them. What makes these Hulk segments special now is how rare they are. They show a careful early attempt to introduce Marvel characters to a younger audience in a calm, thoughtful way. It is a quiet chapter of Marvel history, but one that reveals how far the company was willing to experiment during the 70s. Number 9. Marvel's The Mighty Thor film strip cuts, mid-1970s. Thor in the mid-1970s lived an unusual double life. While he appeared in comics with grand battles and cosmic adventures, he also appeared in classrooms across the country through a series of animated film strips. These were not traditional shows. Instead, they were educational slides with limited movement and light narration that turned classic Thor stories into simple lessons about strength, choices, and courage. Teachers used them as short, engaging breaks between lessons. Each film strip included hand-drawn panels that gently faded into each other while a narrator explained the story. Thor's voice often sounded calm, even wise, and the visuals used soft colors rather than the dramatic style seen in comics. It was Thor reimagined for younger audiences, made to feel encouraging instead of overwhelming. Because these film strips were distributed through local educational companies, no one received the same set. Some included stories about Asgard, others focused on lessons about cooperation or solving problems. The tone stayed warm and steady in every version, turning Thor into a gentle guide rather than a fierce hero. Looking back, these film strips are one of Marvel's most forgotten experiments. They reveal a time when Marvel tried to reach new audiences through schools instead of mainstream television. Thor's animated presence in classrooms may seem surprising, but it shows how flexible Marvel storytelling was in the 70s. Number 8. Iron Man, 1970s. During the early 1970s, Iron Man reappeared on television in a form that most American fans never realized existed. International distributors in Europe and parts of Asia took the original 1966 Iron Man cartoon and transformed it into a series of half-hour telefilm episodes. These weren't simple reruns. They were re-edited, rescored, and partially redubbed, creating a version of Tony Stark that felt noticeably different from the one U.S. audiences knew. The telefilm edits combined multiple short segments into longer, smoother stories, removing abrupt cuts and adding transitional narration to make each episode feel more cinematic. Some markets added brand new musical tracks featuring softer orchestral cues or dramatic bass lines that reflected the decade's shifting tastes. The result was a moodier, calmer Iron Man, less explosive, more introspective. Tony Stark's portrayal also changed subtly. The new narration emphasized responsibility, innovation, and problem-solving, presenting him as a thoughtful engineer rather than a flashy adventurer. For many international viewers, this was their first exposure to Iron Man, making it a formative but rarely discussed chapter in his animated history. Because these edits were produced by multiple distributors, no single official version exists, adding to their enigmatic charm. Today, they stand as a fascinating reminder of how Marvel characters were reshaped for global audiences long before modern international releases became standard. Number 7. Captain America Syndicated Compilation Reels, 1970s. During the 1970s, Captain America found new life not through a fresh cartoon, but through a series of syndicated compilation reels that stitched together older material into new broadcasts. Local stations in different regions aired these reels as if they were brand new episodes. They featured Cap's classic 60s artwork, but added updated music, revised intros, and sometimes sharper narration to match the mood of the decade. The charm of these reels came from how proudly straightforward they were. Captain America leapt into action with confidence, calm focus, and plenty of classic comic style. The stories were simple and clean. Cap uncovered plots, helped allies, and showed steady leadership in every situation. The music added a warm, almost nostalgic tone that softened the older animation. The edits also created a unique pace. Scenes that once moved slowly now played faster, and transitions blended together as if the stories had been designed for a new era. Kids watching these in the 70s often believed they were completely new cartoons. For many fans, these broadcasts became their introduction to Captain America. They showed a version of the character who was strong, kind, and unshakably loyal. The syndicated reels may not have been fresh productions, but they kept Marvel's spirit alive on screens that would otherwise have stayed quiet. Number 6. The Silver Surfer Cosmic Panel Show, early 1970s. The Silver Surfer has always felt larger than the world around him, so it makes sense that his first 70s appearance was not a standard cartoon at all. Instead, Marvel tested a quiet experimental project sometimes called the Cosmic Panel Show. It combined painted art, slow zooms, drifting starlight effects, and expressive narration that gave each moment a dreamlike quality. It never aired widely, but the broadcasts that did happen made a deep impression on those who saw them. The show presented the surfer as a thoughtful traveler. Scenes lingered on loneliness, discovery, and cosmic beauty rather than fast action. The backgrounds looked like glowing illustrations from a science art gallery, and the narrator guided viewers through emotional moments with gentle language. Sometimes the surfer questioned his place in the universe, and other times he offered quiet reflections on hope or choices. This format felt different from every other Marvel project of the decade. It moved slowly, breathed deeply, and invited viewers to imagine the universe as a place filled with wonder. The lack of traditional animation added to its mysterious charm. Although it never became a long-running series, the Cosmic Panel Show proved that Marvel's storytelling could be poetic as well as exciting. It stands today as one of the company's boldest early television experiments, a rare moment when animation paused to let the cosmos speak. Number 5. The Fantastic Four Spanish Animated Series, 1970s. One of the most unexpected pieces of Marvel history came from outside the United States. During the late 1970s, a Spanish studio produced a fully animated Fantastic Four series that aired in Spain and parts of Latin America. It was not a simple re-edit of older episodes. It was its own production, created with new animation, new stories, and a tone that felt completely different from the American versions. This adaptation kept the classic personality of the team. Reed remained the calm thinker. Sue brought heart and steady leadership. Ben added humor and warmth, and Johnny delivered bright energy. but the show carried a softer, more emotional rhythm. Scenes lingered on conversations, teamwork, and thoughtful moments instead of rushing toward action. The animation stood out for its warm colors and expressive character designs. Backgrounds were painted with detail, giving the series a storybook style that set it apart from the sharper American look of the time. Some villains came from the comics, while others were new creations shaped by regional storytelling. Because it aired quietly and never reached global distribution, many fans never learned it existed. Yet for the viewers who grew up with it, this Spanish Fantastic Four became their first doorway into the Marvel Universe. Number 4. Marvel Action Hour Test Reels, 1975. In 1975, Marvel quietly produced a set of short Action Hour test reels meant to explore what a modern animated lineup could look like. These reels were not full pilots, nor were they ever officially broadcast as a series. Instead, they served as internal experiments, brief animated sequences featuring characters such as Iron Man, the Hulk, and Captain America, created to test updated color palettes, smoother motion cycles, and more energetic editing. What makes these reels fascinating is how ahead of their time they felt. Instead of the stiff, limited animation of earlier decades, the artwork used brighter highlights, bolder shadows, and more fluid transitions. Action beats were short but punchy, with characters leaping, reacting, and posing in ways that hinted at a more dynamic future for Marvel animation. The reels also experimented with narration, mixing dramatic voiceovers with upbeat music to see how younger audiences might respond to faster pacing. Though the project never evolved into a broadcast lineup, the footage influenced later productions by showing how Marvel visuals could be modernized without losing their comic book identity. Today, the Action Hour test reels survive only in scattered archives and studio notes, but they represent an important what-if moment, Marvel testing the boundaries of animation just before the big shifts of the 80s. Number 3. The Fantastic Four Pilot, 1978. Marvel's 1978 Fantastic Four pilot is one of the most intriguing projects from the decade, a fully animated test episode that never advanced into a complete series but demonstrated a significant leap in style and storytelling. Created during a transitional moment for Marvel animation, it featured smoother character motion, clearer facial expressions, and a richer color palette than earlier versions of the team. What makes the pilot special is its balanced tone. Instead of the stiff dialogue of the 60s or the simplified optimism of early 70s television, this pilot aimed for natural conversations and thoughtful team dynamics. Reed's calm intellect, Sue's emotional intelligence, Johnny's youthful spark, and Ben's grounded humor all came through with a clarity that earlier cartoons never quite achieved. The story focused less on loud spectacle and more on character interplay, something Marvel animation wouldn't fully embrace again until the late 80s. Even the soundtrack felt modern, using gentle electronic tones that gave the episode a futuristic edge. Although network testing ended the project before it became a series, the surviving footage reveals a missing evolutionary step between Marvel's basic early animation and the more cinematic storytelling that defined the next decade. The 1978 pilot remains a rare, fascinating glimpse at what could have been. Number 2. The Avengers Educational Animation Segments, 1976. Long before the Avengers were blockbuster icons, they appeared in one of Marvel's most unexpected projects, educational TV shorts shown in classrooms and youth programs across the UK and North America during 1976. These brief animated lessons used simplified versions of Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor to teach teamwork, science basics, and positive decision-making. The animation was minimal by design. Characters moved in short motions while comic panels slid or faded across the screen. Bright, friendly colors made every frame easy for children to follow, and narration played a central role, calm voices guiding young viewers through simple, encouraging stories. The shorts avoided conflict-heavy scenes and instead focused on cooperation, critical thinking, and gentle moral guidance. Each school district received different compilations, which adds to the mystery today. Some episodes showed community problem-solving, while others used light touches of folklore or science exploration. Because these shorts were never officially archived, surviving segments appear only in scattered educational tapes and regional broadcasts. Despite their obscurity, these Avengers shorts marked Marvel's first attempt to bring superheroes into classrooms. They reveal a forgotten chapter where Marvel characters weren't just fighters, they were mentors. It's a reminder that Marvel has experimented with tone, audience, and purpose far longer than most fans realize. Number 1, The Fantastic Four, Animated Series, 1978-1979, de Pachi Freleng. The de Pachi Freleng Fantastic Four series from 1978-1979 stands as the most polished Marvel animated production of the decade. Unlike many 70s experiments that barely aired or circulated in fragments, this show achieved a full run with stable broadcasting, strong voice acting, and animation quality that clearly surpassed anything Marvel had released since the 60s. The series balanced energetic pacing with heartfelt team dynamics. Reed functioned as the calm strategist, Sue brought compassion and emotional grounding, Johnny delivered energy and light-hearted spark, and Ben provided relatable humor mixed with rugged warmth. Even with budget limitations, the show managed impressive cosmic storylines. Galactus, Mole Man, and Doctor Doom all appeared in colorful, memorable episodes. The animation itself moved more confidently than earlier Marvel TV efforts. Backgrounds were vibrant, motion felt smoother, and transitions brought a lively rhythm to each adventure. The intro sequence, with upbeat 70s music and stylish character reveals, remains one of the era's most recognizable Marvel openings. This series served as the missing bridge between the rough, experimental early years and the polished superhero cartoons that arrived in the 80s and 90s. It proved Marvel could support a steady animated production with charm, clarity, and personality. Today, it stands as the defining Marvel cartoon of the 1970s. Marvel's 70s animation was wild, unpredictable, and full of creative swings that feel almost unreal today. Some of these shows were experiments, others were stepping stones, and a few were forgotten almost as soon as they aired. Yet each one helped shape the Marvel world that fans enjoy now. Which of these lost cartoons surprised you most? Tell us below and hit subscribe for more deep dives into the corners of pop culture that deserve another look. The past still has stories waiting to be rediscovered.